I want to return to this question of American standing abroad. And in particular, I want to return you to a pivotal moment in this presidency and in your tenure as Secretary of State. I refer to the whole sequence of events in 2013 when the president more than once very firmly declared a red line in Syria and then declined to enforce that red line. The famous photograph of you in the Situation Room seemed to telegraph your own incredulity at that whole turn of events. You ask us to talk to people in the world. I've spoken to many of your counterparts throughout the Middle East who are among our allies, and even to heads of state. And far from overblowing these complaints, we haven't even been allowed to report the severity of the complaints about that particular turn of events. They have told me that nothing they've seen in their careers has done more to damage U.S. standing and credibility around the world, and the particular standing of this president, than that failure to enforce his own red line. Should historians look back on this and identify it as a nadir of the modern presidency?
No. No. Because I don't think that the press, writ large, broadly, has actually properly analyzed, assessed, and reported on exactly what took place. So let me be very specific. It's going to take me a minute, but I'm going to be very specific. The President of the United States of America, Barack Obama, did decide to use force. And he announced his decision publicly and said, we're going to act. We're going to do what we need to do to respond to this blatant violation of international law and of warnings and of the red line he had chosen. Now, we were marching towards that time when, lo and behold, on a Thursday of a week before the Friday decision, Prime Minister David Cameron went to the Parliament, or he went on Wednesday, I forget which, somewhere in the early part of the week. He went to the Parliament, and he sought a vote of approval for him to join in the action that we were going to engage in. And guess what? The Parliament voted no. They shot him down. So as we were briefing Congress, and I was on one of those briefing calls with maybe 100 members of Congress on the call, many of them were saying, well, you're going to come to us. You're going to, go through the constitutional process, get permission from us to do something. And the president had already decided to use force, but then the question became, do I need to go to Congress to get that permission? There was a big debate in the security group. I was part of that. I remember the debate. And we felt that we'd quickly get Congress's approval because this was such a blatant violation. And the president decided, I got a call Friday night, we met Saturday morning, and the president decided that he needed to go to Congress because of what had happened in Great Britain and because he needed the approval, and that was the way we do something like that. It wasn't forthcoming very rapidly, number one, but number two, in the interview, the president never said, I don't want to bomb. He never said, I'm not going to. He went to Congress to get permission to. And in the meantime, at a press conference in London, you may have been there, I was asked the question, is there anything that Assad could do in order to avoid being bombed? And I said, yes. He could agree to get rid of his weapons. And within an hour and a half, I had a phone call from Sergei Lavrov of Russia suggesting that was a really good idea. Why don't we work on whether or not we could do that? And President Obama and President Putin had actually talked about it a few weeks earlier in St. Petersburg. And I'd already talked to Lavrov. I'd actually talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu about it. I thought it was a good idea. And so all of a sudden, Lavrov and I were thrown together by our presidents in an effort to try to achieve that. And guess what? We did achieve it. Before Congress voted, the president never said, I won't drop a bomb. What happened was people interpreted it. The perception was that he was trying to find a different road. And I will acknowledge to you, absolutely, I heard it all over the place. The perception hurt, yes. The perception hurt. But the perception came about despite the fact that we actually got a far better result of getting all of the weapons of mass destruction out of Syria without dropping a bomb. And if we had dropped a bomb, there is no guarantee we would have gotten any of them out.
Is Syria today a better result, sir?
No, Syria has nothing to do with that. What is happening today in Syria has nothing to do with the dropping or not dropping. It has everything to do with whether or not Assad was ready and willing to be held accountable by Russia and Iran to actually live by the agreements that they offered, and also whether or not the opposition was able to act in a way that could create enough leverage for Assad to have to come to the table and negotiate. And obviously, when Putin went in and put his troops on the ground to support his airplanes in the air to support Assad, that whole ballgame changed. We acknowledge that. But the fact is that it wasn't that decision, it was a whole bunch of other things that may have affected that. The bottom line is, folks, the president never retracted his intent to, he just got rid of the need to do it by embracing a different approach that got all the weapons out. And so, yes, I have to acknowledge, I can't, you know, he would acknowledge, the perception certainly is out there, but I don't think it's fair, because I don't think it actually reflected the decisions that he made. And it doesn't reflect the reality of what we were able to achieve. On that note,